and start recording. So thank you all so much for being here today. This Echo is sponsored by North Dakota's State Suicide Prevention Program, which is funded by the North Dakota Department of Health and Human Services Behavioral Health Division. So the Resilience Through Connection Echo really aims to provide a deep exploration of the various factors that impact social connection and the predictors of loneliness. So each of our sessions are going to be tailored with different strategies that increase life skills, resilience, and foster that sense of connectedness for people with disabilities and people with poor mental health. So this includes enhancing knowledge of different protective factors against suicide, and also emphasizing the importance of social connectedness. And throughout this series, we're also going to raise awareness of North Dakota resources and activities that promote a sense of belonging. So today's session, we're going to explore some different ways to reconnect with that deeper sense of internal belonging, not through external achievements, appearances, or abilities, but by being more authentic and present in that moment. So just to give you a heads up, Echo sessions really focus on moving information, not people. It allows you to actively learn about a topic and become a resource for your community. So each session, we're going to have a formal presentation on a designated topic, followed by a case presentation that's going to highlight inclusive and accessible programming for people with disabilities throughout North Dakota. Please note that today's case presentation will feature an interactive workshop to foster that true sense of belonging and self-acceptance that we had previously talked about. So we do encourage you to engage with us. Please feel free to put any questions in the chat, and we will answer those during the Q&A portion of today's session. Your participation is really essential to the success of our Echo sessions. We want to have that interactive community where presenters, stakeholders, and participants can connect and support one another. So if you're comfortable turning on your camera, please do so. And like I said, please put any questions in the chat or feel free to unmute during the Q&A portion of today's presentation. When sharing, it is important that we respect individual privacy. So please avoid using any real names or initials. If you are going to be giving an example of somebody that you work with, please don't identify anybody's family members, coworkers, or email addresses. Your attention to confidentiality really helps us create that safe and respectful environment for everyone.
Okay, so what's wrong? Last time I couldn't get in.
Also, you can earn professional development credits in social work, nursing, or peer support while participating in our sessions. So to receive credit, we ask that you fill out the feedback form that's going to be included in the chat at the end of today's session. Also, please double check that you are muted. Thank you so much. And if you missed the link that we're going to post in the chat, you can also submit feedback in iEcho by going to the schedule tab, and you'll see a submit feedback link right there. Now, I would love to introduce our speaker for today's session. Dr. Meg McKelvey is a therapist, consultant, and trainer who specializes in acceptance and commitment therapy, and she's also the co-founder of Impact Psychology Colorado. She earned her PhD in clinical psychology from the University of Colorado at Boulder. Prior to her work in private practice, she was a psychologist in the family program at Rocky Mountain VA Medical Center, and she served as a nationally recognized trainer and consultant in cognitive processing therapy for trauma in the VA healthcare system. She is committed to decreasing suffering through a lens of ACT and understanding or yearning to belong, as she leads writing groups called Belonging from the Inside Out. So please help me in welcoming our speaker today, Dr. Meg McKelvey. Thank you so much.
Hi, everybody. I'm so delighted to be here and so grateful for Krista for inviting me to be here. I'm going to be talking about belonging and why we yearn for it and what happens when we mismanage it. This work on belonging stems from my own deep resonance with yearning to belong and a passion to share what I've learned in the service of reducing human suffering. I haven't obviously figured all of this out, but it really feels important to share what I have learned with you all. This presentation is going to be a teaser because it's really going to be quite short. An hour is not that long. And so in a lot of ways, I may leave you with more questions than answers, but my hope here is to spark your curiosity. So we're going to have some experientials in this workshop, and just really want to encourage you to take care of yourself and participate in a way that feels comfortable for you. Some aspects of the experiential exercises can be quite evocative, so don't hesitate to listen to your body and participate at the level that feels right for you today. Um, okay, I'm just going to change my view here so I can see some of you. There we go. Okay. Hello. Hello, everybody. Okay, so I'm going to dive right in here, and you'll see, in some ways, you'll see me moving a little bit quickly because I'm really excited about these experientials for you to get more of a felt sense of what I'm talking about. So, but I also want to give you the background a little bit here as well. So here we go. Um, we live in a culture that tells us we need to get rid of sadness and loneliness and that we should be happy. But all around us, there are struggles. We may develop an illness, a mental health challenge. We may lose a loved one. We may be experiencing discrimination in our job or feel like we don't fit in because of challenges related to our abilities or our mental health. Next slide. Thank you. Emotions are evolutionarily wired and they have important functions in our well-being and survival. Sadness serves to connect people when times are hard, and anger serves to protect us when our rights have been violated. And more generally, emotions serve to tell us what matters to us. Our grief is proportional to how much we love someone. Bypassing our emotions can leave us without direction or vitality. As humans, we all have a particular type of emotional pain around our yearning to belong. Moments when we feel alone and an outsider and question whether we belong. If you're willing, let's take a minute here to remember a moment of belonging uncertainty. So just finding a comfortable seat here and letting go of all the things it took to get here and all the other aspects of your day. And just imagining yourself as a child at the playground or in the school lunchroom, the noise of excitement, the surge of physical energy of young bodies. You are beginning to notice other people are noticing you and that you are a part of a social order. The other kids are teasing and laughing together, and there's something you don't understand. Inside, you feel like there's something different about you, as if you maybe don't quite fit in with your classmates. You feel embarrassed and left out. Perhaps you just sit there quietly or even laugh with the group so they don't learn your secret, the secret fear that you don't really belong. Do you remember what this felt like when you had uncertainty about your belonging? Next slide, please. So just coming back to the room, and we're going to talk a little bit more about some of these painful self stories that may have shown up early on. At a young age, we develop painful self stories about how we don't belong. I'm not smart enough or good enough, or I'm fundamentally different from everyone. If you're willing, you might ask yourselves, what are my unhelpful stories about my belonging? And how do they show up in my daily life? And so if folks feel moved, you can put in the chat any of these or your own versions of what painful self stories have come up for you in the past about your belonging. Yeah, so no one understands me. You're too much. Absolutely. I don't fit in. Absolutely. I'm not good enough. Yeah, absolutely. You're too sensitive. Yeah. Yes. I love how there's repeats of the same ones that people are resonating together. So, so I'm going to go to the next slide here and keep going. Thank you for your participation. I love it. The yearning to belong and be special is a natural part of our evolutionary history. Who doesn't want to feel like they truly belong? The desire to be loved, accepted, and connected to others is part of being human. And there are multiple dimensions to our sense of belonging. There's multiple facets of it. There are close interpersonal relationships, being a part of a community, and then also connection to something larger than ourselves. Some aspects of belonging can sometimes be harder to put into words, like sitting under the stars and feeling deeply present in the moment and part of something greater than ourselves. For those who work with individuals with disabilities and mental health challenges, understanding and supporting the need for belonging is especially important. Many individuals with disabilities or mental illness face unique challenges in connecting with others and often feel isolated or misunderstood. As caregivers, educators, service providers, it can be easy to fall into patterns of trying to fix or improve someone's situation by teaching them a skill, like social skills, or helping them make an achievement rather than focusing on true, authentic connection. Next slide. Thank you. More broadly, in our culture, there can be systemic barriers to belonging. Discrimination and othering can keep people from feeling a sense of their own belonging. Belonging work, as we explore here, can be a form of advocacy work, helping people to find a sense of belonging and exploring barriers to their belonging is a powerful tool to reduce suffering. The yearning itself for self-esteem and belonging is healthy and part of our common humanity. Imagining what our society would look like without it. Imagine what your life would look like without it. The longing itself helps lead us to what we need, just like hunger or thirst. In today's world, where many of us feel isolated or disconnected, some of the ways we try to satisfy our belonging needs may cause us emotional pain because they are dead-end strategies that don't actually make us feel like we belong. As Stephen Hayes said in his book, A Liberated Mind, human beings yearn to be seen, to be cared for, and included as members of our group. We are social primates, and we evolved in small bands and groups where belonging was literally a matter of life or death. While this yearning is healthy, many of the ways our minds try to satisfy it cause us psychic pain. We lie about ourselves to defend our ego. We play the victim. We berate ourselves for failing to meet inflated standards that might please others, and we become consumed by worries about rejection and perceived slights. We may try to gain acceptance or earn belonging by presenting an ideal version of ourselves, whether it's trying to be special or being overly focused on our appearance. We can try to build up positive self-esteem and earn our belonging by being good or special. But trying to gain acceptance by presenting an ideal version of ourselves can have a high cost. We can end up focusing on impressing people rather than connecting with them. And this can leave us with hollow achievements or a curated Instagram feed, but feel isolated and alone and out of touch with our values. So we're going to be talking about some examples of the unhelpful or misdirected ways we may try to satisfy our yearning to belong. And as we go through these examples, you may consider thinking about how they apply for you. When we desire so strongly to be worthy of love or to be special, we can turn on ourselves and we become the problem to be solved. We can be overly self-critical and we can become an endless self-improvement project. And as Pema Chodron says, something like, there's a subtle aggression to self-improvement. Next slide, please. Thank you. Sometimes the desire to be special drives our behavior. We can fixate on our outward appearance or needing to prove our worth with being special. We curate our life and our social media feed, and the natural consequence is that there's less time for authentic exploration. We may avoid or misdirect our yearning to belong by striving to have the perfect appearance, the perfect career, trying to prove ourselves or be the best in the room. Trying to check all the boxes our culture lays out for us related to achievement or looking good. We can get a lot of kudos for overworking or being overly accommodating. Everyone loves that we always say yes. There's something about it that does work because we get highly reinforced in our culture. But then this strategy often backfires, and we may find ourselves feeling burned out and alone. We believe that to belong, we need something, acceptance or love from other people. And in order to get that, we may engage in a number of strategies. So we may engage in a lot of people pleasing or have challenges saying no. We may feel that we must be everything to everyone. And we give and give, perhaps doing things that are beyond what we are capable of. We may have a fear of disappointing others, saying no, setting boundaries. For example, when a friend asks us for a favor, we may have trouble saying no, hoping that we will finally feel worthy and loved, hoping it will all lead to a sense of belonging. Let's take a moment here to recognize all the things we've been doing to find belonging. I've just touched on a few here. You may have other strategies that you notice. If you're willing, write down a few things you've been doing that are dead-end strategies to find belonging. All the ways we've been trying to be special, all the bargaining we've been doing with ourselves when we feel a sense of not belonging. This pain shows us how much we care about belonging. In fact, the more mismanaged yearning to belong that we see in ourselves and our clients, the more it's clear that belonging truly matters to us. So if you're willing, perhaps putting in the chat some of the ways your mismanaged yearning to belong has manifested. Spending more money than I have, yes, absolutely. Overloading my schedule, absolutely. Working too much, yes. Accepting toxic relationships, absolutely. Yes, thank you. Self-isolating. Okay, we're going to keep going here. Thank you for your comments. I love it. What if it really boils down to this paradox that our mismanaged belonging, people pleasing, striving, trying to be the best in the room is actually what causes us disconnection from ourselves and others rather than a sense of belonging? These strategies backfire in the long run because they are inadvertently are leading us to more disconnection, burnout, and rejection, ultimately reducing a sense of our belonging. Perhaps you are aware of some of the strategies that have backfired. Next slide. Learning to tap into a sense of belonging that doesn't depend on external accolades or appearance can help foster a healthy and secure internal sense of self. We learn to be less dependent on other people's approval or perceptions of who we are, and this can help us cultivate a healthy relationship and authentic connection. Now we're going to talk about the ways that we can get out of this trap and move towards true belonging. As John, sorry, next slide, please. We'll start with a couple of questions. What can be learned from our longing for high self-esteem and belonging? How can we channel it in ways that are life-enhancing and not limiting? Okay, next slide, please. Okay. So let's go ahead and do a brief guided meditation. And just finding a comfortable seat where you are, settling into a posture with your spine upright but not rigid, and allowing if you're comfortable, allowing your eyes to close or your gaze to soften, softening your belly and letting your shoulders drop, allowing your jaw to open, letting yourself fully arrive here. Imagining that in this moment, there are no problems to be solved and there's nothing to do. You are fundamentally whole in this moment. And as you are ready, slowly scanning the body, noticing if there's any unnecessary tension and seeing if you can release it. And where there are places that cannot be relaxed, bringing tenderness and allowing them to be just as they are. Noticing the mind, the thoughts that show up as we arrive here and now, the to-do list, or what it took to get here. And just seeing if you can let that go and come back into contact with what is happening in your body. Becoming aware of what feelings are here, not judging if unpleasant feelings are here or getting swept up in positive feelings. Just touching what is here, not trying to fix or change. Just allowing the energy of what emotions are here to be here, not getting caught up in the storyline. Maybe you notice that your mind has a puzzle it's trying to solve. Just noticing this and gently set down the puzzle. Allowing yourself to drop the storylines, just touching lightly into the energy of what is here. Noticing what is already quiet and already still. Relaxing back into that which is noticing. The silent, still, open knowingness that is ever present in the midst of all the ups and downs of life. Resting here, staying with being with things as they are, And if a thought arises or a difficult sensation, allowing it to be as it is, lightly touching the thought or feeling. Resting here and allowing everything to come and go, like a wave moving across the ocean, rising and disappearing. Nothing is here to stay. Being with yourself without needing anything to be different. And if it feels accessible to you today, imagining yourself as a baby on the warm chest of your caregiver, gazing into their tender eyes, the soft focus of your newborn eyes, not yet separate. Imagining your caregiver looking down at you with awe for one of the first times. Your perfect little fingers, your tiny lips, your paper thin skin, and the familiar curled up position of your body, as if you are still inside the womb. The miracle of your beingness. There's no problem to be solved. Close your eyes and rest here in your completeness. And as this meditation comes to a close, just noticing if you can release any unnecessary gripping and seeing if it's possible to bring with you this deep knowing of your completeness, your true belonging. Okay. Taking a deep breath, and we'll move into some more material. What if fundamentally our yearning to belong is not noise to tune out, but precious data sending us important signals to listen to? What if when we listen to the signals, we can learn to understand our fundamental biological need as humans? Can we bring a compassionate curiosity to our experience of yearning to belong? Instead of trying to fill the void or get rid of the feelings with some kind of temporary fix or feel good boost, can we spend some time listening? As a helper, can we allow space for people's experience of not fitting in or not feeling like they belong, slowing down to let them come into contact with the pain that they are in without us trying to fix it? What does our pain around belonging tell us about what is mattering to us? When we listen with discernment to our longing, we can learn to differentiate what is leading us towards authentic connection and what are dead end strategies. For example, are we isolated? Or are we actually surrounded by people but still feeling alone? Do we long for deeper connection with people who are in our lives? What are the stories that get in the way of connecting with others? Listening to the healthy signals of our belonging can lead us to fine-tune our lives, moving towards deeper connection. And what if our greatest fear of not belonging is also what connects and unites us most? What we fear is our biggest secret, is fundamentally part of what makes us human and connects us to the cloth of our humanity. And what if understanding and creating a relationship with these painful feelings and this ongoing process of longing is what brings us into health and balance? Listening to our yearning to belong can help us figure out the ways in which we've gotten off track in life. It can also be a way that we build new connections with other people. Some ways we might tune into our yearning are meditation and mindfulness, spending time in nature, body-centered practices like yoga, tai chi, and tuning into our bodies, creative outlets like art and music. We can really cultivate a practice in our lives, no matter how small, 5 minutes, here and there, of slowing down to hear the signals. When we slow down and connect with our yearning, we can build corrective experiences of belonging in which we are accepted exactly as we are without having to earn anything. This type of nurturing can happen in all types of relationships, friendships, partnerships between a therapist and a client, even in the way that we parent our own kids. Recognizing the universality of our yearning to belong can also be one of our greatest strengths as helpers. Truly listening to the folks we work with from a place of we and embracing our common humanity can transform our interactions. Our pain around our yearning to belong can also be a way that we build connections. Dropping our exoskeleton and being more authentic and real about our challenges can lead to our most satisfying and deep relationships. Okay, so if you're willing, one of our most powerful tools in moving towards true belonging is compassionately observing our own unhelpful self stories about belonging. So, for example, you might notice a few of your mind's greatest hits. So we had some thoughts in the chat previously. And some of our stories about our unhelpful stories about belonging repeat themselves over and over. There's a real theme, like I'm not good enough, or people won't like me, I'm too much. Um, Once we've identified these as a theme, we can create sort of a list of our mind's favorite, what I call show tunes, and how this shows up for us. It can be easier to spot and not let this thinking trip us up. So, like I did before, you might even sort of do some jazz hands when they show up with yourselves or with someone that you're working with. So, what are your greatest hits? You might put some in the chat. And can you hold them more lightly? Okay. Once we become aware of our unhelpful stories around belonging, we can ask ourselves, someone is just asking in the chat, how to hold them more lightly. There's a bumper sticker that says, um, don't believe everything you think. So that's a little bit of what I'm talking about, that the stories about I'm not good enough, when we hold them lightly, we don't believe them to be facts. We recognize them that they're part of a storyline that our mind is telling us. So I'm not good enough, for example, it's not a true fact. It's a story that our minds tells us. And when we hold that lightly, we don't let it push us around. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So once we become aware of our unhelpful stories around belonging, we can ask ourselves some questions. Am I letting these self-stories about belonging push me around away from my values? So there's a real theme here in the chat of I'm not good enough. Keeps coming up, right? That's a show tune. That's a storyline. So my question for you is when you're spending time with a friend but are keeping your inner struggles private, is it because your mind is telling you that you're uniquely messed up? And when you don't ask a friend to hang out because your thought that I'm not good enough and I'll never belong is pushing you around, are you moving towards your chosen values and vitality? So sometimes this thinking, for example, I'm not good enough, may actually lead you to be at a social gathering and not ask for a phone number, or be at a social gathering and not talk to someone that you're interested in talking to. And so that is a way in which we're not in line with our values. We want to move towards someone and we may not, because this storyline, I'm not good enough, may push us around away from our values. Okay, next slide, please. When we find ourselves overwhelmed by negative belonging stories, it can be helpful to tap into our birthright to belong. Similar to the meditation that we just did, can you tap into in this moment that you are worthy of love and belonging right now? There's nothing to change. You don't have to lose 10 pounds. You don't have to begin the next self-improvement project. You are worthy of love and belonging right now, simply because you are alive. There is no person here in this room that came out of the womb and was more deserving of love and belonging. It is your fundamental birthright to be worthy of love and belonging. So there's an Irish poet that you may want to check out. His name is John O'Donohue, and he writes a lot about belonging. And one of the things that he says is that our bodies know that they belong. It is our minds that makes our lives so homeless. So that's what we're talking about here, is that there is a fundamental, deep knowing in your body that you belong, and that tapping into that is what we can do. And so it can take a little bit of work to do that, but it is available to us. It is available to us every day of our lives. But our minds kind of take us away from the natural goodness of us, from our true belonging. So, okay. So what I would like for us to do is we're going to do a little bit of a, so don't do anything yet. I'm going to lead you through this. So I'd like for you to find a comfortable seat again and just noticing if you can drop any tension any gripping that is in your body right now. We're going to do a little bit of a writing exercise, but I'm going to guide you into it. I'm going to create a little bit of some guidance into it. So letting go of the tension that can be let go of in your body. And just taking some breaths. Letting go of some of these storylines, some of the show tunes that have shown up that we've brought compassionate attention to. Just letting go, just being here. There's nothing to solve. There's no problems to be solved here. And I'm going to read you a poem. Wild Geese by Mary Oliver. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles in the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clear, clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things. I'm going to read it again for you. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles in the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things. Okay. So as you're ready, we will start. I'd like you to get out a sheet of paper or your notes tab on your phone. And I'm going to give you some prompts. And, we've done a lot of intellectual things today in this workshop. We've talked about intellectual concepts. But right now, I want you to put your intellect aside. And I really want you to write from your heart. And you're not going to be sharing this with anyone. And I want you to let go and allow yourself to write in a way that is not censored. And you're free to write just nothing important or profound, but just writing from your heart. So, um, what I want you to start with is this prompt around when I reconnect with my yearning to belong in its most pure and natural form, what is it telling me? And so you might write down the four prompts here. So you might write down sweetheart or friend or buddy, rest into, slow down by, let go of, and do more of. And I want you to just write those prompts down and then we're going to spend about, Krista, what do you think? Maybe about 6 minutes or 5 minutes? Yeah.
Yeah, 5 minutes sounds good.
Okay, let's spend about 5 minutes and just write out, rest into, and then see what comes up for you when you're writing from the heart with each of these 4 prompts. Hey, so um, as you might have experienced, 5 minutes is so short in terms of addressing these prompts and these questions. And um, so I just really want to encourage you to explore this later on and go deep into some of this. Journaling can be a really helpful way to reconnect with your own sense of belonging. Um, and so I'm wondering, let's see, I am wondering about, at this point, we've got a little bit of time for questions and thoughts. Um, so here are some questions that I have for you as sort of parting little gifts for you. We've gone through so quickly this material around belonging, and like I said in the beginning, really, my hope is that this just sort of sparks your curiosity about belonging. And um, so here are some questions for you. I think in particular, how can we increase a sense of belonging among individuals with disabilities or mental health challenges? Um, how can we channel our yearnings to belong in a way that is life enhancing and not limiting? And um, and how might you use some of this framework with some of the folks that you're working with and with yourselves? So I want to pause here um, and open up the space for some questions, comments, that kind of thing, because we've really just sort of opened up Pandora's box here. I saw some questions in the chat as well.
One of the questions is, have you wrote a book?
Um, well, I'm really flattered by that question, but I have not yet. Um, but there is more work available. You can check out my website. I have done another interview, a podcast interview. I think that is actually why I'm so passionate about this work, is it just feels that there's not a lot out there about this. And so I've really um, become very passionate about disseminating this work. So yeah, thank you for your question.
I have something.
Great.
It's Roberta. I have not, is the sound fine for you guys?
It's pretty echoey.
I know. I don't know what to do about it.
For the most part, we can hear you, so go ahead and try.
Okay. I wasn't aware of how I felt about belonging. I felt like it was okay with whatever I was doing. But as I was listening, I found that I isolate myself because I felt like I don't want to be around people. I don't want to do this. But actually, it was my fear of how I would fit into a group. So that was kind of
Absolutely.
eye-opening for me.
Yeah, I think that you bring up such a good point, Roberta, is that, really in slowing down and taking some time to sort of tenderly and compassionately explore this, there's so much to be learned about our relationship with belonging. And I think that is what draws me to this work, because there's so much that we're perhaps not aware of when we're not thinking about these things. And then when we become aware of it, it can be really mind blowing. At least that's my experience with myself and also with clients. Um, yeah. So, let's see. I don't know, Krista, if you want to pick some questions from the chat.
Yes. So, how do you clear out a negative comment from your mind and not keep rethinking about it over and over?
That's a
I
really
really,
good.
I really like that one because, yeah,
You like that question, Andrea?
yes,
How do you clear them out?
yeah.
Okay, I love it. So, thank you for these amazing questions. So what a great question. So we're not trying to clear out the thinking. We're learning to relate to it in a different way. So our mind, we have 50,000 thoughts a day. We can't control those 50,000 thoughts, right? We have very odd thoughts. We have funny thoughts when we're not supposed to have funny thoughts. We have all kinds of thoughts. We have negative thoughts. We have positive thoughts. We have thoughts about wanting to take a nap. We're not going to clear those out. What we can do is relate to our thinking differently. And so that's what we're talking about today is really bringing compassion to our sort of negative belonging thoughts. That of course we have this kind of thinking because of our evolutionary history, because of our culture, and we're learning to relate to this storyline. Like, for example, I'm not good enough, with compassion of like, oh, sweetheart, of course you have this thought around I'm not good enough. It just it just is part of our experience. So and once we relate to it a little bit differently, what we'll often find is that it becomes a lot smaller. The volume turns down on some of the thinking. So that's really the idea. Is that helpful? Okay.
Yeah, that's really great. And we have a very good question, very loaded question. So, how do you work with clients that have experienced real belonging betrayal? My mind jumps to clients that deal with real stigmatization, such as being trans. And how do you work with helping them try to find that sense of belonging, especially when they experience real setbacks along the way, such as coming out to a close friend, being met with rejection, or even violence? So, how do you support these folks? How do you help them trust in that sense of belonging?
Beautiful question. Thank you so much for that's such an important question. I think this relates to discrimination that many people in our culture unfortunately experience some pretty profound discrimination, especially right now. And so we're not talking, we really want to acknowledge that 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 is part of our culture. We're not trying to say that that is not here. We want to really validate and acknowledge that, and also talk about how our belonging is independent of other people's views or sort of hate or things like that, that we fundamentally belong, and that is everybody's birthright. So, you know, part of it, the work may actually be sort of grieving some of the ways that someone in a marginalized group has been treated, like that is real, um, and not okay. Um, does that resonate? So coming into contact with, like helping them come into contact with the pain around that is a part of that process, and sort of that pain also shows them how much it matters, what is mattering to them, what their values are.
Thank you
I have
also.
I have a question. So one thing that I've noticed just from well, the research, and then B, my personal experience, because I have a pretty limited disability, is that so a lot of the people in the lives of people with disabilities are I don't know how less harshly to say that they're paid to be there. And so what I've noticed is that creates a falsity of, hey, this person is my friend. And then when they're no longer paid to be there, there's a sense of abandonment that happens a lot of times. What would you say would be the best advice to give to somebody in that situation?
Really, really beautiful question. Yeah, that is a painful part of it sounds like of having a disability. And I think that what I would say there is really noticing if there are self story that come up about why this person is no longer a part of one's life, right? Like, what are the stories that we tell ourselves? Are we telling ourselves that the person is no longer there because we're not good enough, or we're not worthy of love, or something's wrong with us, or things like that? And that thinking is not helpful, or may not be helpful to us. And so it's sort of the attribution or the reasons that we're telling ourselves this person is no longer there, may be tripping us up. Is that helpful, Kyle?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. McKelvey, for this wonderful presentation. I'm going to have to get this chat to you because I'm beyond blown away by how much people were engaged, and there's so many thank yous, and thank you guys all so much. I did post a link to the survey. I know a lot of people have to jump off, so please take a moment to fill that out. And all the great presentations are coming through. A lot of people are saying that this was incredibly valuable. And this is session one, everybody. We're going to be here for 10 more weeks, and we hope you can join us for our session next week when we're going to be talking with Sydney Zarlango, and they're going to talk about autism and relationships and building those social connections and that sense of belonging when there's differences in just how we approach relationships. So thank you all so much. Okay, I'm going to post one more time in the chat. So many great comments, and once again, thank you all so much for just engaging. There's
Uh,
um
Krista, I don't remember such a series that has this engagement of a chat, so I'm hoping you all can keep it up because it's been a fun hour with everybody chiming in.
yes, thank you all so much. And I've had a few people message asking about the recording. It will be posted within the next week. We will post a link in I Echo under content, but we will also post a link on our website with Dr. McKelvey's slides. So much great information. I highly encourage you to download these slides and watch the recording. I'm definitely going to watch it again myself. So thank you all so much. And thank you so much, Dr. McKelvey.
Thank you so much. My heart is so full after interacting with everyone and sharing this space with everyone. I'm just so delighted to be here, and just thank you so much, Krista, for having me.
Yeah. I want to give a shout out to Jamie's comment. She said she cried and you made the space over the interwebs. Dr. McKelvey didn't know I needed this. Glad you were doing this work. I didn't know I needed this either. Also, do you have any recorded meditations? You have like the best meditation voice.
Oh, you know what? I think I may need to post them on my website. So stay tuned for that, because other people have asked for that. So I may have to do that. So thanks for the request.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. I
one thing I've kind of realized throughout my life is that the universe, whatever you call it, the universe or God or flying spaghetti monster, it has a chance of giving you exactly what you need when you need it. So yeah, this was way more relevant than I thought it was going to be to my life.
Beautiful. Thank you, Kyle.
Yes, this, yeah, it was like, I need this.
Right, at times it felt like you were talking right to me, which was odd.
Mm, beautiful.
All right, everybody. I will give you one more minute to click on that survey link, and thank you all so, so much for being here. I will say off the record, well, it's not off the record yet. Jody, you got to push pause on the recording.